How are you doing, Madison?
I am doing great, Dylan.
Tell me about it.
I am... What have I been up to?
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I went to Boston not too long ago for Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And I also went to Salem.
Yeah.
It was very fun. I actually really did not like Boston.
Yeah, you mentioned it was very polluted.
It's dirty.
Just dirty place.
Just dirty. Like I realized maybe I'm not the city person I thought that I was.
Yeah.
I think I'm very limited to being a New York person, and even then I wouldn't live there.
Uh-huh.
But I think I told you, like, it was just like dirty. Like there was no glitz and glam. It was just like you're stepping in pee for the sake of stepping in pee. You're
Just
not
for the sake of it.
Yeah, like it's not even, you don't even get like fun. I don't even get like dinner and a show, you know? You just get peed on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. At least in New York, there's like glitz and glamour. I'm going to like see pretty marquee lights and then step in pee.
And there are rats everywhere in New York. I don't need to bring up rats a lot.
I have never seen a rat in New York. I saw a rat in Boston.
In Boston?
Saw a rat in Boston.
Okay.
David...
Usually, when I think of Boston, I think of like cobblestone streets and beautiful buildings and Harvard.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
No, not for me at least. I saw the Boston Commons was nice.
Okay.
I saw the Embrace, the Martin Luther King Jr. statue. The Edgar Allan Poe statue. They have like a little garden there. And then I took David on an adventure down an alleyway because that's where
Scary.
Google Maps took me.
Okay.
And that was a mistake. There was even more pee and garbage. And not only did we run into rats there, but there were also rat traps. So
wow.
It was...
Do you know who the mayor of Boston is, or somebody who's responsible for the upkeep of the city?
I don't know. I want to speak to them though.
I want to lodge a formal complaint.
Honestly, like it was fine. Like in the downtown area, it was like normal city dirty.
Yeah.
And then you go to the food places a little bit further and like downtown. And it's literal like trash. Like just trash, and like the windows, like the buildings are so dirty. Like walking down the streets, I was like, I'm going to catch a disease.
Was there anything good about it?
Well, for Boston specifically, we went to a very nice, expensive dinner, and that food was real good.
Okay,
it was real good. So that's what we did.
But it was expensive.
It was expensive, and I also paid. I think also I'm very bitter because I paid so much in parking. We got 3 different parking garages in one day.
Yes.
Which I do not recommend everybody. It was like $26 a piece.
Yeah, you had a glazed expression on your face for a second.
I'm really bitter. Like in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's whatever. But it's hardened my heart to Boston a bit. Comparatively, I only spent $12 in parking in Salem.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so there is a saving grace to this.
For 2 days, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great deal.
Right?
Right? So, of all the cities you've been, where does it rank?
Boston?
Yeah.
Forgettable.
Not even ranked, but just like not on the list at all.
Yeah.
Damn.
No, I would go back if I knew somebody there who knew what they were doing. I wouldn't go back for a day trip again. I would go back to Salem in a heartbeat. That was real cool. Real cool.
Okay.
I'm going to do that every time.
Great.
You do your little thing.
Yep. I try and try.
Yeah.
And I try.
Yeah. And you fail.
I do. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's not wonderful. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So let me take that back. It sounds terrible. But I'm glad you had a great time in Salem.
Yeah. What about you? What's new with you?
I have been learning more about lucid dreaming.
Okay.
I've had this book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. It's been on my shelf in my TV console since I got it. Long before that, it's traveled with me through different apartments. And then...
Through time and space.
Through time and space itself. Through the astral plane.
Wow.
And a few weeks ago, something, I don't know what exactly, knocked the book down. So it was like sort of facing me, and I could see the title, and I was like, well, this is a sign.
Was it Janie who knocked it? Was she the something?
Maybe she was a sign. But I picked up the book.
Okay.
I started reading it.
Okay.
And the intro to this book is fantastic. And it made me think about something that I hadn't considered.
Okay.
So we spend about a third of our day asleep.
Yes.
Consequently, we spend about a third of our lives asleep, if not more.
Yeah.
And why not use that time consciously instead of sleeping it away unconsciously?
That's very fair.
You can add a third to your life if you learn how to lucid dream effectively.
Okay.
Which is quite the argument, I think.
I would say.
And because of this, I've been keeping a dream journal, which allegedly helps you to lucid dream. And I made an entry last night around 3 o'clock.
Please. Oh, this is the content we're here for.
And this is the entry that I made on my phone after waking up. In the dream, survived the summer whose future was determined by a fancy mirror, but he was dissuaded until the end.
What the fuck is that?
So,
what the fuck, Dylan?
Make of that what you will.
When did you write that?
Around 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that makes
and then
sense.
I followed up with, I then later go on to sell a magical goblet for cheap. Which, if I were awake,
that makes sense.
If I were awake, not a mistake I would make. I would not sell a
for
goblet
cheap.
for cheap.
Magical goblet for cheap.
A magical one, yeah. So it has been wonderful. I've been having more frequent dreams. Like I used to never remember my dreams, and over the past 5 days or so, I've remembered every single one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love dreaming. Honestly, So for lucid dreaming, I'm sure we could do a whole episode about it. But just for the time being, is it restful sleep?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
So it's not like you're It's not like you are using that time to then just wake up to be tired.
No, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of people who lucid dream report feeling rejuvenated after a lucid dream just because of the contents of the dream.
I love that.
Which is wonderful. Have you much experience with lucid dreaming?
I don't believe so. I know I think I looked into it whenever I was in a high school or something. But what is it really? Again, sure we could do the whole episode about it, but
so it's becoming conscious and aware within a dream, much in the same way that we're conscious and aware in real life.
And you can make decisions and stuff.
Yes,
I think so. I think inadvertently I have some real crazy ass dreams.
Yes, you've mentioned
they're very vivid, and I have been able to know that I'm dreaming and change things the course of the dream. So yes, yes.
So it's very exciting because imagine if you're able to do that every single night.
That's pretty sick.
It becomes like your own little universe that you get to manipulate and exist in wonderfully, with exempt from all the bounds of actual waking life.
Yeah,
which is wonderful. And there are some stories in this book that really stood out to me. For example, there was a performer who never played a piece of music before.
Okay.
Who performed it in their dream several times and then went on to play from sight perfectly on the first try. So there is, just based on that anecdote alone and a lot of other anecdotes, utility to this as well.
I love that.
Whether
it's
practicing an instrument or studying something.
That's amazing.
Or,
I think there's memorization techniques that some actors use for they'll record themselves saying it and listen to it while they sleep. They've heard that that helps you. And I've tried it and it's never worked for me. But I imagine that there is some connection there between it repeating in your head as you're dreaming. And if you can remember it and actively hear that and be aware of it and then remember it when you come out of it. That makes sense.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Yeah. I know that there's also I listen on a podcast that there's also such thing as two-way communication between somebody who's lucid dreaming and a researcher who's monitoring them.
Really?
The person who was dreaming communicated. What was it exactly? They moved their eyes underneath their eyelids a certain way when they were doing something, and in doing so, were able to communicate with researchers.
Okay.
And I'm missing information there, but it's really interesting and a field that's not been studied probably as much as it should be studied.
Yeah, for sure.
Because just imagine most people have had a lucid dream in their life.
I imagine without realizing it. Yeah.
And if you remember just how much fun it was, why not invest more time into learning how to do that actively?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I absolutely agree. I think, honestly, I have no arguments. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Everybody, start learning how to lucid dream.
And then from there, you can maybe extend that into the world of astral projection.
Yeah.
Which I imagine those things are connected. Or at least if we're to believe Sylvan Mundune.
Sylvan Mundune. Peepin' Sylvan.
The Peepin' Mundune for sure. But yeah, I'm very excited for today's episode.
Yay. Me too.
And can I go first?
Yeah, absolutely. But first.
Yeah.
This is My Existential Crisis, the podcast where we talk about all the things that make us question our entire sense of self. My name is Madison Epley.
My name is Dylan Berger. Cue the music. Oh, God, I can't believe I forgot. Oh, goodness. So I hate to remind you of this.
I know. You say you do, but you always love to just bring shit up that I hate to be reminded of.
I hate to remind you of this, Madison. I really hate to. Yeah. I am reluctantly reminding you of this.
Yeah, again and again.
Because it was absolutely devastating to your reputation.
Yeah.
But in our last BS or No S episode, you saw this coming, right?
Yeah.
You covered Marina Abramovic.
Yeah, I did.
The Serbian conceptual artist and performer. More specifically, you covered Rhythm Zero, where she gave an audience of people a selection of items ranging from a rose to a loaded gun, then allowed that audience to do whatever they wanted to her body. To provide a super brief rundown on that particular performance, things escalated quickly from Mundune. From Mundune interactions to a member of the audience positioning the gun to Marina's head before a fight broke out.
Jeez Louise.
My thoughts exactly. She had a long career in pushing her body to the limits, and she had a partner as well for quite a few performances. His name was Uva Lysipin.
Uva Lysipin.
Yes, and in 1980 he performed. He performed with Marina in an art exhibition titled Rest Energy. Both Marina and Uva stood on opposite ends of a drawn bow and arrow.
Oh, geez.
They held. Yeah, the arrow was pointed at Marina's heart, with Uva controlling the tension of the string. Were he to let go or slip, he would kill Abramovich. This didn't happen, of course, but it's just another example of her kind of extreme performance art. That said, she wasn't the only artist who delved into the extreme and macabre, and today I want to talk about a few examples of brutal but often inspiring pieces of performance art.
Okay.
The first artist I'm going to talk about today is named Tasheen Sheh.
Okay.
Spelled THCHINGHSIEH for those who'd like to look him up. He's Taiwanese born and was called a quote-unquote master by Abramovich herself.
Oh, wow.
To give you an idea of this guy's commitment, his first work had him jumping out of a second-story window in Taiwan in 1973.
Jeez, for why?
Well, he snapped both of his ankles on the concrete. I guess he was looking for his big break. It's not even close to the levels of weird we're going to get. From 1978 to 1979, a full year, September to September, he locked himself inside a wooden cage. Inside the cage, he had a wash basin, a pail, and a bed. Sounds like your average New York City apartment, am I right?
But
For the duration of that year, he didn't allow himself to talk, read, or write. He also didn't have access to a TV or radio. His loft mate came daily to deliver food and remove waste. Whether or not he knew what he was getting into when he signed the lease, don't know. The loft mate also took a picture of him every day to document the project. Once that project had ended, Tasheen was raring to go. From April 1980 to April 1981, another full year, he started a new challenge. This one was called Time Clock Piece. The challenge here was, in my opinion, inarguably harder than the last. For a full year, Tasheen would punch a time clock every hour on the hour. Every time he punched the clock, he'd take a picture of himself.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, of course.
By punch the clock.
Yeah.
My first thought was he's like physically punching a clock every hour.
No, it's just like one of those like old-timey...
Like a punch card.
Punch card clocks.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. So these pictures were later turned into a 6-minute video, and he received a lot of acclaim for this. It's clear to see why when you consider what exactly this project demanded.
Yeah.
Imagine that you had to return to punch the same time clock every hour on the hour.
So you couldn't be more than 30 minutes really from any place.
Pretty much.
It's not an hour because then you have to get back.
Exactly.
Damn.
But more than that, Tasheen had to punch a clock over the course of the night as well.
Oh, shit.
So he'd have to wake up, punch a clock, then return to sleep, repeating this every hour for 24 hours every day for a year.
Jeez Louise.
Jeez Louise, indeed. It was impossible to get a full night's rest for this guy. So in Tashin's third performance piece, he spent one entire year outside. He moved around New York with just a backpack and a sleeping bag. He wasn't allowed to enter any kind of building or shelter, and this also included transportation like cars, trains, airplanes, or tents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tents?
Tents, yeah. However, this particular performance was interrupted when he got into an altercation on the street. Though he was acting in self-defense, he was promptly arrested and then spent about 15 hours in a police station.
Damn.
Which must have been fucking...
That would suck.
So frustrating.
Yes.
To do like... Put in all that work and then just to be brought in by the police.
Yeah.
So the next artist I'd like to talk about is named Orlan. All caps. So she's a French multimedia artist who's explored a broad variety of mediums, from sculpture to photography to video games and artificial intelligence. Though the specific project I want to talk about is a little different. From 1990 to 1993, Orlan would commit to a series of performance pieces, which she titled La Reincarnation de Saint Orlan.
Okay.
For our English speakers in the audience, that's The Reincarnation of Saint Orlan.
We are only a French-speaking podcast. Excuse you. This is an educational French podcast.
Yeah. We've really got off on tangents, but at the heart of it,
that's what we are.
Hoping to educate people on French.
Yep.
So the project covers a total of 9 surgical operations.
Oh, shit.
Surgeries.
It's not where I thought we were going here.
Yeah, all of them were filmed as well.
Wait.
So Orlan underwent these operations to alter her facial features using icons from the Renaissance as a model for the surgeon to reference. She received the forehead of Leonardo da Vinci's.
Da Vinci.
Leonardo
da Vinci.
Holy shit. That fucking TikTok has gotten into my head. Leonardo da Vinci's, or Vinci's if you're feeling it, Mona Lisa, the eyes of Diana, the nose of Jean-Léon Gérôme's Psyche, the lips of Francois Boucher's Europa, and the chin of Botticelli's Venus.
Wow.
In fact.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. This is also an Italian education.
This is a podcast. Language education podcast.
I know we're 40 episodes in and we haven't gotten around to educating everyone on language.
Don't say that. I'm sure there was some French at some point. David's French.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Okay, yeah.
And Italian, actually.
Oh, wow.
So he's got the bases covered.
All right. Excellent. So we don't have to do French education?
No.
Wonderful. Now, something that's hard for me to fathom, and this might be a little shocking, but all of these operations she did without anesthetic.
Wait.
During these surgeries, she even read Michael Sarris's The Troubadour of Knowledge, the text of which was engraved on her remaining flesh.
Wait, okay, hold on. Hold the phone.
Yeah.
When you say it was engraved upon her remaining flesh, what does that mean?
I believe that it was written on her flesh with some kind of instrument.
Like a pencil or like a
sharpened instrument, I believe.
Into her body? And she was just reading at the same time as the surgery?
She was reading at the same time with the surgery.
But it was done before.
Which part?
The
writing of the text?
Yeah.
I think it was afterwards because from what I wrote, it was on her remaining flesh. So whatever flesh she had remaining. This was Orlan's way of denouncing violence against women.
Okay.
Apparently, the painful surgeries weren't enough, however, because in a later performance, Orlan went under the knife again. This time, she had horn implants placed in her temples, fighting against the conventional beauty standards placed on women.
Was that also without anesthetic?
The article didn't say, but I would assume yes.
I don't know why that is so jarring to me. Like,
yeah, I mean, even getting dental work done without any kind of anesthetic is a nightmare. But having facial reconstruction done,
I really can't imagine.
There's a picture of her on the operating table that was attached to the article I read, and she looks like she's having a grand old time.
Jeez Louise.
She's smiling, kicking her foot up in the air as she holds a giant white cross. If that's not a commitment to your art and message, I don't know what is.
Damn.
Now, next on my list is a Russian man named Pyotr Pavlensky. And to provide an added layer of rebellion for some important context, he did all of his political art in Russia, which is famous for violently stamping out this kind of thing. He, like Orlan, delved into the brutal and often grotesque use of his own body, all to challenge Russian authorities and awaken those he considered zombified. So what did he do? Oh, no. Well, he did a lot. Let's start with his piece titled Stitch. Madison, if you had to guess, what do you think Stitch entails?
I don't like it. I don't like any of it. I'm imagining it involves stitching something up on your body.
Yeah, what do you think he stitched?
Your eyes shut.
Oh, holy shit. No.
His mouth shut.
Yes.
Fuck.
In his piece Stitch, Pyotr sewed his mouth shut to protest the trial against the famous band Pussy Riot, which is, I hate that word. Gotta say it though.
Wait, what did you say?
I'm not going to say it again.
Well, I actually didn't understand what you said though.
He sewed his mouth shut to protest the trial against the famous band Pussy Riot.
Pussy Riot?
I'm not going to say it a third time.
The way you're saying it sounds like...
I hate to say it. My body rejects it.
Okay.
There are certain words which I just hate.
Puss.
No, the other one.
Pussy Riot.
That's wrong.
Pussy Riot.
This is not an important detail.
Okay.
This was to fight back against a lack of freedom of expression he saw in Russia at the time. Это довольно сумасшедший. Am I right?
What the fuck? Wait, is that actual
This is
Russian?
a language podcast now. And yeah, that was actual Russian.
See, we are an educational language podcast.
Yeah, the following year, Pyotr would wrap himself in barbed wire in his piece Carcass to protest Russian laws, specifically those against homosexuality. In that same year, he did something that received international attention, and you might have heard of this one, actually. He nailed his ball sack to the ground at Red Square, a central city square in Moscow. This was during Russia's National Police Day. This guy was really busting his balls to get his message across, am I right? Guys will do anything to get nailed, am I right? Sorry, I just wrote. I was like, what jokes can I write about this?
I didn't breathe for a full minute there. I stopped breathing.
Yeah, 2 years after his ball busting, Pyotr would do something that would get him jailed by Russian... Finally, jailed.
I was going to say.
Yeah, jailed by Russian authorities for a total of 7 months. He would set fire to the door of the former headquarters of the KGB.
Oh, that's arson. So
yeah. Ultimately, he wanted to use his country's own violence to denounce its actions. True hero, in my opinion. The last piece is probably my favorite.
Okay.
And it involves someone who is willing to die for his art.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
Or at the very least, accepting of the possibility that he would die for his art. The artist Bas Jan Ader was a Dutch performer and photographer, and his work, In Search of the Miraculous, would end in his death.
Oh, jeez.
The project was completed in 3 parts. The first part was titled Nighttime Walk. Yay. Things started innocently enough, with a nighttime walk through Los Angeles. Bas photographed his journey, and these images depicted him moving through empty, eerie streets, representing his personal quest. What are you thinking?
I'm just forecasting. I'm forecasting this one to be the darkest of them all because here's what I imagine is going to happen.
Yeah.
I imagine he's going to do this for a very long time and like not instigate things, but like walk in, like be in dangerous situations knowingly, and then because he's in those situations knowingly, it will actually happen and he will perish.
Well, you were correct that he is going to place himself in a dangerous situation knowingly. However, that's in the third part of this project. Okay. And it's sort of unrelated to
well, I was going to say, creepy LA street sounds like dangerous unknowingly to me, but
absolutely,
that's just me. Sorry, keep going. No, I don't want to cut you off.
The second part was a cute little choral performance in which a choir sang sea shanties.
Wait.
During the exhibition of his photographs from the first part of the project.
Okay.
Of course, these shanties were traditionally sung by sailors during their long and perilous voyages across the ocean, symbolizing risk and adventure.
Yeah. This just sounds fun right now.
Yeah. The third part of In Search of the Miraculous was by far the most bold. In 1975, to conclude the project, Bas set off on a solo journey to cross the Atlantic Ocean in a small sailboat. not at all well equipped to travel that distance. This part of the project represented a literal search for the miraculous. Of course, Boss disappeared during his transatlantic voyage. His boat would be found near the Azores, which is a Portuguese archipelago. And though his boat was found, Boss was not.
Jeez.
His willingness to risk and ultimately lose his life transformed In Search of the Miraculous into something much more tragic and poignant. And I can't help but think that during his last moments, he was bravely singing a sea shanty, having perhaps found what he was looking for.
Beautiful.
So, out of all the projects I've covered today, which is your favorite?
Favorite's a subjective word.
Yeah.
Favorite in terms of like the most shocking, the one I admire, the most powerful.
Yeah, the most like, which one succeeded the most in conveying like a strong message to you?
Oh, I would say the time clock piece.
Yeah.
I would say that one for me. Just, I don't know. That one resonates the most with me, I think.
Yeah.
Considering, my fear of time and everything.
Yeah.
I think that's just like very, I don't know. It really it makes it so conscious to you. It really brings it to the forefront.
Maybe it would help you overcome your conflict with time to do something similar.
I don't think that it would.
Okay.
I think it would make it much worse. But okay, we'll try it one day.
Now, I think the ways in which we can artistically express ourselves are limited. Oh, fuck. Let me try that again. Take two. I think the ways in which we can artistically express ourselves are limitless.
Oh.
And the artists I talked about are examples of that fact. Whether you're locking yourself in a wooden cage, modifying your body, nailing your thick and tenders to the ground, or setting off across the Atlantic in a tiny sailboat, a message can take many forms. Marina Abramovich once said, "Art is not just about another beautiful painting that matches your dining room floor." And researching these brave and visionary people, I'm inclined to agree.
Oh.
Sources are Wikipedia, The Guardian, Far Out Magazine, Artspur, Culture Trip, and Goodreads.
Love that. What do you find the most poignant?
I like the last one.
Yeah.
Just because somebody putting together a project called In Search of the Miraculous, trying to sail across the Atlantic Ocean.
With the goal to literally search for the miraculous.
Yeah. It just makes you want him to find it out there. Yeah. And he wasn't able to bring that back with him. But it's still a very deeply personal voyage and one that has inherent value nonetheless.
For sure. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Dylan.
Absolutely.
That was awesome.
Okay. Now, we talked at the beginning of the episode about you taking a trip to Salem.
We did. And
how's that for a Sagoo?
Perfect. 'Tis the season, y'all.
Tis the season.
It's
the
fall
season.
Y'all.
Oh, gosh. I think I've seen a pillow with that embroidered in.
Probably. That's where I got it from. Yeah, it's on my bed.
Yeah, a throw pillow.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah, I went to Salem. I have always been very into learning about the witch trials, and I love, if you couldn't tell, guys, I like weird history, and I like things that make you think.
Yeah.
So it's always really felt very powerful to me for obvious reasons, but I was able to be kind of reintroduced to the whole story while I was in Salem about the witch trials.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today.
Excellent.
I'm going to talk about some of the, we all have a general idea of what it is, but there's so much more behind it, and the social context of it all that I think is really fascinating.
I think most of us have, whether of our own volition or being forced to by a teacher, had to read The Crucible.
Yeah.
In grade school.
Yeah, for sure.
What was his name, the writer?
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
We're going to start with a fun fact then.
How about that?
Speaking of Nathaniel Hawthorne, he is actually a direct descendant of one of the judges who convicted people in the witch trials. Hathorne was his relative's name. He changed it to Hawthorne. He changed the spelling to distance himself from his relative's past. And because he wrote The Crucible, I think he wrote 4 books on the witch trials of the time. He felt like an immense guilt for his ancestors' transgression and felt a really heavy responsibility to like right those wrongs for the victims.
Well, yeah, what a strange thing to transform your history into a message that was so counter to the way that they lived.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Anyway, I'm going to go over my sources so I don't forget them. First, I'm going to shout out Kat from Witch City Walking Tours in Salem. She was our tour guide and she was lovely. Gave us a lot of really great context that I had never heard before. And that's kind of what inspired me to want to talk about it here. So, hey, Kat. Probably never going to listen to this, but just in case.
Kat, this one's for you.
This one's for you. Wikipedia, the Peabody Essex Museum, the Smithsonian Magazine, History.com, New England Law, Salem.org, Britannica, and the National Endowment of the Humanities.
New England Law?
Yes.
Madison Epley Esquire.
Esquire.
Nice.
Yep, exactly. So, for those of you who don't know, the Salem Witch Trials occurred between 1692 and 1693, only 1 year in colonial Massachusetts.
I had no idea.
Right?
Feels like it should have been much longer.
People think that, but it was only for 1 year, and it represents one of the most infamous episodes of mass hysteria in American history. These trials resulted in the senseless murders of 20 individuals and the imprisonment of dozens more. A complex web of religious, political, legal, and social factors is what created this perfect storm for these tragic events to occur. So just some history. The witch trials actually started in Europe in the 1300s and actually began to dissipate across Europe by the mid-17th century. So like the 1650s, people were sick. Like they were getting over the witch trial craze. But despite this, the American colonies continued the hysteria in the New World. So while the rest of the world was moving forward, America was not.
Wonderful.
Yes. The Puritans who settled in New England, including Salem, came with a rigid religious framework, left England due to feeling persecuted. They believed in the literal interpretation of the Bible and had a strong fear of the devil and witchcraft. And even though the Church of England was very conservative and like literal with things, it wasn't literal enough. It wasn't extreme enough for the Puritans. Oh my gosh. Which just shows you how extreme it was.
It's ironic that they were escaping persecution.
Yeah.
Only to just replicate that persecution.
Persecute others. Yeah.
In new and exciting ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not new and exciting because it was brought over from...
in old and reproduced ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It's interesting too because I don't know a whole bunch about this, but the like tales about Merlin, the wizard Merlin, were very, very, very popular. And it was very popular among people in magic and that kind of thing. Wasn't always persecuted.
It's true.
It was only with like further establishment of like Christianity that magic practices began to recede a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really great. Actually, I love that because it's also a really great context that like it didn't used to be taken as heavily as it was. Like it used to be like lighthearted and fun, like it is today. So the Massachusetts Bay Colony, a theocracy. So it was very much a society where religious leaders held civic and spiritual authority. The Puritan worldview did not distinguish between natural and supernatural events. So misfortunes like illness or crop failure often attributed to the work of the devil. The Puritans believed that their colony was chosen by God to be a model Christian society, and they actually named Salem after Jerusalem. It was meant to be a new Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea.
Right? Salem is now in modern day Danvers, which is where we stayed whenever we were in Massachusetts.
All I can think of is Jerusalem now.
Jerusalem. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can
Jerusalem.
God has a nice ring to it.
It does. It really does. It really honestly does. So in Jerusalem, there was a lot of internal strife going on. The region had been suffering economically and socially. There had been years of poor harvests, frequent skirmishes with Native Americans, internal village disputes adding to the tensions. Again, they were thinking that this is all the work of the devil. Of course, it had to be. There were social disputes over land ownership, religious leadership disputes, specifically involving Reverend Samuel Parris, who was a key player in the game.
Yeah.
tensions between the wealthier residents and the poorer farmers close to the wilderness, a lot of political instability, strained relationships with neighboring towns. It was a lot of stressors going on. And they found the best way as kind of like an excuse for all of these to be witchcraft. So I'm just going to quickly touch on some of the key figures because there's a lot of names in this, but I'm just going to name some of the more poignant ones.
Okay.
So Reverend Samuel Parris, he was the minister of the Salem village, and his role was critical in sparking and sustaining the witch hunt. His home was where the initial fits of Abigail Williams and his daughter Elizabeth occurred, and his sermons helped to fan the flames and stir the fears of the threat within Salem, contributing to the hysteria. He knew what he was doing. His actions were influenced by local politics. He was unpopular with many people within the village, and this was a really great opportunity to get him to strengthen his control and influence over the community. So that's the Parrises. The Putnam family. They were the influential accusers. Anne Putnam Jr. was one of the primary afflicted girls who made numerous accusations. Her parents played significant roles in supporting and advancing the witch hunt, accusing other people and influencing her to also accuse people. Again, had to do with family rivalries, that he would accuse people who they had rivalries with, and that's what motivated their accusations. The next is Governor William Phips. He was the governor... Phips.
Phips?
Phips.
Phips? F-I-P-S?
F-I-P-S. Nope. I had a stroke.
Phips?
P-H-I-P-S.
P-H-I-P-S?
Yes.
Phips.
Phips.
Double P?
No double P.
Wait, P-H-I-P-S?
P-H-I-P-S.
So it is a double P. One at the beginning, one at the end.
Okay, well, yeah. There's two. There are two P's.
Phips?
Phips.
That's outrageous. I can't believe that. I can't suspend my disbelief.
Why is it outrageous?
Sorry, it's just a really strange name to me.
Is it? There's a Phips Botanical Garden in Pittsburgh.
From the Phips family?
I don't believe so, but that's...
Is family also spelled P-H?
No, double P at the end. Triple P then. Triple P.
That is crazy. This name, or this story is full of really interesting names.
Yeah. There was a Dorcas involved.
Let's just isolate that sentence. There was a Dorcas involved. Honestly, you can tell. There was a Dorcas. Okay. I love it.
Okay, so Governor William Phips, he was the governor during the trials. Only after his own wife was implicated, he dissolved the handling of the trials.
I see.
So that'll come into play later, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
George Corwin, he was the high sheriff during the witch trials. His position was obtained through nepotism because he was the nephew of both judges all three of the prominent judges. He was nephews of two and a son-in-law of one of them.
Nephewtism.
Nephewtism.
I see.
So George Corwin's very much a key player. All of the judges were corrupt. George Corwin was no exception. And it gets much worse. So in January 1962, this is when the afflictions began. Elizabeth Parris, age 9, and Abigail Williams, age 11, began exhibiting strange symptoms: convulsions, contortions, incoherent speech, feelings of being pricked by invisible needles, and these symptoms were quickly interpreted as the work of witchcraft after the local physician couldn't figure out what was wrong with them. So naturally, it has
yeah, of course.
Soon, other girls in the village, including Anne Putnam Jr., Elizabeth Hubbard, and Mary Warren, reported similar symptoms, pains in their bodies, and spoke of bizarre dreams where the devil would come to them. While there is speculation that these symptoms could have been caused by like a fungus poisoning or like psychological factors, we don't know for sure, but here is my theory, and I believe the most logical theory of them all, because I'm a scholar.
Okay, what's the theory?
I believe, and others believe this as well.
Ergot?
It's no.
No?
No.
What is it?
Ergot. No. The psychological stressors from the strict religious atmosphere, the local disputes, the personal vendettas, all of that, plus finally like getting attention from adults, I believe is what caused it. And I would like to first and foremost say that I do not blame the girls. Like, they were just children. They get a lot of shit for starting all of this, but they were kids. Like, kids have a wild imagination. The hysteria was being perpetuated by the adults, and the adults did the killing. Not only were they children, but they were children who grew up in the most strict environments.
Yeah.
Do not speak unless spoken to. Eat, sleep, work, pray, repeat. Imaginations are wild. You know, once they started getting any attention, wouldn't you do anything to keep that going? Because they didn't, nobody listened to them. So now all of these important people within the village are giving them attention, looking to them actively for answers. I mean, I know what kids do. I would probably spew shit too.
Yeah.
So I think get a lot of shit for it, but like, I very much don't want to blame them.
Or, Madison, maybe there actually was witchcraft involved.
Okay.
And there were malevolent witches within the Salem community who plotted to kill Phipps. Thoughts? Speak on that. Speak on that. That's actually true. Let's speak on that. It's true. Speak on that.
As a historian, an expert in the witch trials, Phipps did not die.
I see.
He's remained eternal.
So the witches were beaten then?
Yes.
In that case? And the trials were successful?
Yes.
Okay, I'm taking all that back because there was a lot of death that shouldn't have happened. But... please continue.
Gosh. All right.
Keep digging myself a deeper hole.
Yeah, I'll just let you go. It's fine. So we're in February now. Still 1692. And this is when the first accusations actually start.
Okay.
Because these girls are now under pressure to identify who the witches are that are tormenting them, they named 3 names. The first was Sarah Good. She was a homeless beggar who had been known for her temper and, you know, bad tongue. She swore a lot. It was a little sassy. You can't do that in Puritan culture. Sarah Osborne. She was a frail, bedridden, elderly woman who had not been to church in months because she was bedridden.
Yeah.
She also married an indentured servant, which also was scandalizing to the Puritan community. And the last was Tituba, the Paris family slave. Now, fun fact, you may not know this. Many people do not. I did not. Tituba was actually instructed by the lady of the house, Mary Sibley, to bake a witch cake made of rye and the Paris daughter's urine. Under the lady of the house's supervision, Tituba and her husband baked this cake and fed it to the family dog. This was an English occult practice, which was an act of counter magic to find out who it was that had cast a spell over the girls. So it was an occult practice that was accepted by the community, encouraged by the lady of the house, her, I hate to say it, master, you know, who she's supposed to be listening to. She doesn't have any choice. And then she gets blamed for being a witch.
Yeah.
When she was trying to actively help find.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm waiting for Dorcas to show up.
She will.
She will. Okay.
She will. Not quite in the way that you. Not as fun.
No?
No.
Okay.
Maybe we don't harp on Dorcas anymore.
All right. That sounds fair.
So Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne pleaded their innocence, but Tituba's confession became a pivotal moment. Under duress, she confessed to witchcraft and detailed fantastical stories of the devil, describing how she signed his book and encountered other witches in the village. She also confessed that Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne were witches, adding fuel to the fire.
Okay.
Her confession was coerced, and she was trying to save herself by feeding into the fears of her interrogators.
Yeah.
Now, again, Tituba is a character who gets a lot of shit for accusing Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne.
Yeah.
It's shitty, but it's not like anything would have, it's not like she would have been saved. They would have been saved. So like the way that it worked was if you were accused of being a witch and you pleaded your innocence, you were thought to be refusing the denouncing of the devil. So like, you will not admit that you're guilty. You will not turn your back on the devil. You are remaining steadfast to him. We're going to put you to death.
So what are the options exactly?
Tituba. That's what she did. She realized that also being a slave, not having any choice, not knowing that she has zero voice in the community, she did what she could to survive for herself. And she knew that the girls who did plead innocent, they're going to be hung anyway. Yeah. So by her accusing, she tried to position herself as a little bit more worthwhile to save, I guess. And also then by confessing, she would have denounced her association with the devil.
Interesting.
And it did save her. It did.
Oh.
It did. She ended up living out the rest of her life in peace.
So if you accept the accusation and then denounce the devil, you're safe.
Yes.
You're safe?
Completely? Yeah. Yes. If you can provide like information on other witches. Like if you have information to help catch other witches or to like stop the madness, then you'll be saved because you're being useful in that way.
Okay, I see.
Yes.
Gotcha.
However, remember, we are in Puritan England.
Yeah.
So like morals are very strong. Religious aspirations are very strong. Lying is not okay. You do not lie. So Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, being the very, very strictly religious Puritan women that they were, they would not bend on their morals or lie.
Gotcha.
So by spring, accusations were spreading rapidly across Salem and neighboring communities. Prominent members of society, including Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse, both devout churchgoers, were accused, signaling that no one, not even the most pious, was immune from suspicion. Of the 144 people prosecuted at the Salem Witch Trials, 8 were children under the age of 12. All 8 confessed to being witches and implicated their family members.
Wow.
The youngest convicted child, Dorothy, often confused as Dorcas, Good.
Not laughing.
Was only 4 or 5 years old.
What?
4 or 5 years old.
How would they even be able to do witchcraft at that age?
That's a great point, and I will get to that when we talk about corruption and nepotism. Okay. Because that is a point that is brought up in court.
Oh, yeah.
So Dorothy Good was the daughter of Sarah Good, one of the women who was first accused. And she was pressured into speaking out against her mother, who had pled innocent. She was jailed with her mother, Sarah Good, who had been accused of the same crime 3 weeks earlier. Dorothy was held in a dungeon-like prison for almost 8 months. And Dorothy's birth year is believed to have been like 1987, and she was hung in 1692. So she was only 4 or 5 years old when she was killed. She was the youngest victim of the Salem Witch Trials.
Wow.
Yeah. So
why do people confuse Dorothy for Dorcas?
It's a really great question. I think it has to do with like the records back then. A lot of the records from this were destroyed.
I see.
Destroyed the evidence because what they were doing was not legal.
Do you know if Dorcas was a popular name?
It was actually. I do know this. And I only know this. I'm going to bring it up again. I know this because of Beach 2 Sandy Water Too Wet.
Shout out to Beach 2 Sandy Water Too Wet. Another podcast which has been mentioned how many times now?
At least 5. It's so bad.
Oh, goodness.
I'm so sorry.
It's a good podcast.
It's a great podcast. Dylan's the one who recommended it to me years ago, and I think I've listened to it far more often than he has.
Yeah. I've been listening to an episode in a while. But yeah, can you imagine like a girl being born in like 2024 and her name's Dorcas and her family's like, yeah, it's a family name. It goes way back to the Salem Witch Trials.
That's exactly what happened in the episode, though.
Seriously?
Like verbatim. Oh, they were reviewing things in like Salem or like something like that, and somebody made a joke about the name Dorcas, and this reviewer was like, "It's my aunt's name. It's a family name. You don't even know how much land she owns in Nebraska." It was the whole thing.
God. The esteemed Dorcas family.
Yes.
Goodness gracious! I know it was like a Shakespeare name.
Was it?
Yes, it was in I want to say Midsummer Night's Dream.
Really? Really?
I believe so, yeah. Because in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2, the one of the characters gets really into acting, and she's part of a Shakespearean play directed by Kyle MacLachlan from Twin Peaks, who plays Agent Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks.
Okay.
MacLachlan. And she's playing in the play, and her rival in that play gets the part of Dorcas. And I remember that distinctly, and I was like, what a name.
Let the rival have it. I mean, just let her.
Oh, goodness. But yeah.
Oh. All right. So, as you can probably tell, the judicial system in Salem during the trials was far from impartial. Corruption and nepotism was rampant among those in power. First, the Salem examinations were conducted in public. Accusers were present and often went into the fits whenever those who were accused were near them. This was seen as evidence of the accused's guilt, and these examinations were supposed to allow magistrates to decide whether the accused should be held in jail or go to a future trial. So naturally, that's not cool. And there was literally no reason for this to be in public. In fact, the legal authorities specifically recommended examinations be conducted in private. But the Salem magistrates, they said, no, we're going to do it in public to get these witches.
Yeah.
Speaking of, anyone with a blemish, mole, birthmark, etc. would be seen as sporting a witch mark.
Okay.
That is what that is. It could be literally anything.
A blemish?
A blemish.
A mole?
A mole. A birthmark. A freckle.
A freckle?
A freckle.
A single freckle?
A freckle.
How pale are these people?
That was my first question. You have to also imagine they're dressed head to toe in clothes. So only if you're doing something scandalous, like showing your ankles where someone might see a blemish, cover those bad boys up. Then that probably also has something to do with it.
Man, so you got to be completely freckless.
Freckless.
And pale.
Shrekless.
Freckless, and pale. And you have to, I guess, completely cover your body and face.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying stuff.
Yeah. The court who ruled over the proceedings was established by Governor William Phipps.
Oh.
Again, coming back. He standardized this court in a way that was not standard. Basically, the court was manipulated by the powerful families within the village, like the Putnams. And Phipps wasn't even involved in the beginning. He actually came halfway through the witch trials whenever it was full madness. And he took a step back for a little bit. He's like, you know what? You guys figure it out. I'm going to put this court together just so you guys can take over things. So the court that he put together was appointed with 9 judges, all of which were members of the colony council and the prominent men who he knew and who were already doing these proceedings. The
fit boys.
The fit boys, yeah. Several were magistrates who had been leading the examinations. One was his own lieutenant governor. Essentially, he saw the chaos, knew he wanted no part of it, and he tried to help.
Just delegate.
You guys take care of it. And this court was very not biased. Judge John Hathorne, grandfather of Hawthorne, led most of the examinations and was clearly already convinced of the accused's guilt. In one infamous examination exchange, accused witch Bridget Bishop tried to tell Hawthorne that she was innocent, pleading, how could she be a witch when she doesn't even know what a witch is?
Well, ignorance of the law does not.
Keep going. Yeah.
Ignorance of the law
Let him cook.
Does not excuse you from the law, is the saying, right? What does the fucking say?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ignorance of the law doesn't, just because you don't know the law doesn't mean that you're
excused from it.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Almost.
Yeah. Cut all this.
Yeah. But he said,
yeah.
Cut all this. But he said, how can you know that you're not a witch if you don't know what one is?
So he reverse Uno'd.
Yeah.
Her.
So basically, he was kind of a dickhead like that. And any kind of argument you would make, he's one of those guys who would reverse Uno it back to you. Just make it impossible to argue. And that's why he put a lot of people away and hung a lot of people.
Gotcha.
Convictions also heavily relied on the spectral evidence that I mentioned before. So like based on dreams and visions, based on the fits that are happening live. No actual evidence, just hearsay. And a lot of hearsay mostly from children, honestly, is how most people were convicted. And additionally, George Corwin, remember him, the sheriff?
Yes.
He and his relative judges, who he was all related to, they would, whenever somebody was arrested, they would get their property and land seized. So whenever anybody was arrested, they would take all of the land and property and money for themselves. So, again, they knew what they were doing. It was very corrupt. Throughout the summer of 1962, the witch hunt reached its peak. Bridget Bishop was the first to be hanged on Gallows Hill on June 10th, 1692. She had a long-standing reputation for being difficult behaviorally and was previously accused of witchcraft. Rebecca Nurse, Suzanne Martin, Sarah Wilds, Sarah Good, and Elizabeth Howell were hanged on Gallows Hill on July 19th of that year. Rebecca Nurse, again, she was this respected elderly woman in the community. Like, she was the last person anyone would suspect. Her neighbors actually signed a petition. 39 of her neighbors, in fact.
Wow, that's a lot of neighbors.
And it is, especially for the time, attesting her innocence, and she was still hung. Sarah Good was actually pregnant at the time of her conviction, so she awaited her execution in jail until after the baby was born. And so despite giving birth, she stood at the gallows looking very pregnant because she had just given birth. And that did not feel great to the people who were watching.
Yeah.
Individuals such as George Burroughs, he was a former minister of Salem, and John Proctor, a farmer who was openly critical of the trials.
Yeah, John Proctor. That's one of the main characters in Crucible.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes. Character is much different from the actual character. So, like, he was very, very critical of the trials. He didn't think that what we were doing was right, and so naturally he was hung for being a witch because, you know.
Did you just say he didn't think what we were doing was right?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
The royal we. The royal. He didn't think what...
You've been on this story too long. It's getting in your head.
I have been. The Salemites were doing was very wrong. And actually, George Burroughs, he was a former minister. As he was standing on the gallows, he was reciting the Lord's Prayer perfectly at his execution, which is something that was thought impossible for witches, but this still did not spare him from hanging. But again, all of these things combined, they're really starting to see a deep-rooted they're really starting to seed a deep-rooted doubt in the community. Then we get to Giles Corey. Giles Corey. Yeah. If you remember Martha Corey, who was accused earlier. Yeah. This is her husband. He was also accused later, but he refused to stand trial by refusing to enter a plea. And he knew that if he didn't enter a plea, he could game the system and the trial wouldn't be able to proceed.
Smart.
Because the trial couldn't proceed, his family would still own possession of their land and property because he was concerned about that, because he knew what was happening. He was then subjected to pressing. And if you don't know, it's a form of torture in which large, heavy stones are placed on your chest. It's usually meant to last a few hours. Instead of 2 hours, it was like 2 days of pressing.
Wow.
Yeah. He would be ordered to plea over and over, each time refusing to. More stones would be placed on him. He was laid on his back on the bare floor, naked. They'd be placed upon his body. He was given no food or water. And the weight was so intense, it caused his tongue to protrude from his mouth. And George Corwin would actually force it back into his mouth. And he grew really frustrated after 2 to 3 days. And so he asked once more, "How do you plea?" And famously, Giles Corey's last words were, "More weight."
What a badass.
Right?
Damn.
More weight. The sheriff complied, and Giles passed away shortly thereafter.
What a hero.
Yeah. Now, the pressing of Giles Corey became a symbol and a turning point for the trials. Not only was his death particularly gruesome, but he was also, at the very least, an innocent man. He was never convicted. He was never even put on trial. So, like, at the very, very least, one innocent person has been killed because of the witch trials that they know of. And now it's really starting to sow even more doubt, like, maybe we didn't do this the right way. Maybe things are, not quite right. In October of 1692, Governor Phipps's wife was the newest member of the community to be excused, and this drew the line. He said, nope, not doing this anymore. So he shut down the court that he created and put in an actual superior court of justice that was supposed to be there. This disallowed spectral evidence, and this change led to a dramatic number of convictions. In May of the following year, 1693, he issued a general pardon for everyone who was still imprisoned, because there were still 144 people plus in prison. There could have been much. Those were just the ones who were convicted, I believe, not executed. Yeah. There were still more who were being held in prison. By then, 19 people had been hanged, 1 person had been pressed to death, and 5 others had died in jail. Hundreds more had been accused, but were finally released at the pardon. Even animals fell victim to the mass hysteria, not talked about often enough, I might say. They would kill dogs, thinking that they had been linked to the devil. So after the trials ended, a huge wave of guilt and regret swept over Massachusetts. In 1697, one of the judges actually did publicly apologize for his role in the trials, but most of them did not and faced no recompense for what they had done. They got to keep the land and the money and most of the things, which really sucks. Anne Putnam Jr., one of the very most active and one of the first accusers, she also issued a public apology in 1706, claiming that she had been misled by the devil, and, if I might add, her entire community. In 1702, the General Court declared the trials unlawful, and 9 years later, they passed a bill restoring the rights and reputations of those accused, and they also offered them a whopping £600 as restitution.
Right. Nice.
But
now we're talking.
The damage was irreparable.
Yeah.
Many, again, like I mentioned, many of the responsible, including Reverend Paris, the judges, faced absolutely no formal punishment. George Corwin, nothing.
Yeah. Do you know who wouldn't want £600? Giles. Giles.
I hated that so much.
Oh goodness.
We're done. But just some misconceptions, memorialization, the future. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until that's right this time. 1957. More than 250 years later, that Massachusetts formally apologized for the witch trial events. And it wasn't until 1992 that the town of Salem dedicated a memorial to the victims. And then it wasn't until 2017 that a memorial was established at Proctor's Ledge, which is where the gallows were, where the executions actually took place. People think that Tituba was a willing witch. She wasn't. She was a slave who was desperate to survive. Also, it wasn't just women. Men were also executed, as you can clearly see by Giles Corey and the Reverend and the farmer and many, many more. And
in visiting Salem, did you feel any kind of energy there that was distinct?
I didn't. I think where it's really lovely where they have the witch trial memorials. They have an old Salem cemetery, and then there's a little old historical house, and then there's a little patio. What is it called? A
pavilion?
No, it's land.
Land?
It's a little...
It's a special kind of land.
Yes. It's
It's a plot.
Kind of. But it's an open area, but it's a special reason for it.
Okay. This is fun. No, let's figure out the word for this.
It's a specific word, I promise.
Palazzo.
No.
A grand palazzo.
I don't believe that was it. It's not a park. Mm-hmm. It's a small little memorial. It's there's cobblestones there, and there's there's stone benches within the walls that are there. There's stones engraved. What is it called?
Engraved stones in a small plot of land with stone benches and cobblestones.
For a memorial.
I feel like this is very specific.
No, That's a word. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway. There's a tree in the center, and each bench represents one of the victims from the witch trials. Everyone has their own dedicated bench.
Oh, wow.
Either relatives who like found through ancestry.com or just people who like want to thank them for their moral convictions. They'll leave like letters and flowers at their benches. It's really lovely. Notes. They'll leave notes. People who are related to the accused would leave notes like talking about how they're an inspiration. People who might have been part of the people who were accusing them might leave notes and like apologize for their family's actions. And my favorite part of where this is at, I believe it was George Corwin. He ended up getting his comeuppance in a different way. Okay. He ended up dying very mysteriously. Oh. And he's buried close to that area. And so, petty revenge. Like, the very last thing that person can see, George Corwin, is everyone memorializing the people that he executed.
Wow.
And no one gives a shit about him. And no one even, like, I don't even think we know where he is in that area, but we just know he is in that area.
Yeah.
And nobody cares.
What happened to him? What killed him? You said mysterious, but.
So, George Corwin, remember, he was the one who was responsible for pressing Giles Corey. Well, only a few months after the witch trials ended, he died of a heart attack at the age of 30 years old. And local legend says that it was Giles Corey's curse that killed him because he had complained of a heavy weight on his chest the night before he went to bed.
Damn. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
He was crushed.
That one was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was good.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah. Sorry it was longer, but there was like, for me, like, I love it. I love it. And it, like, I really love all the nuance that there is to it. There's so much, like, I knew the gist of it, but like knowing all of the corruption. Also, like.
Wow. What a fascinating thing.
Thoughts, comments, concerns.
You know,
feedback.
It's something that isn't necessarily isolated to that time period either. Because we've seen it replicated in the 50s with McCarthyism.
Yeah.
And we see it today with a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That I can't think of at the moment, but I do know that there are parallels.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from exactly. Maybe it's just like the other in a community.
I think
everyone is afraid of the other. And whether that's a witch or a communist or
anyone who has a differing belief that is threatening to yours.
Yeah. It's a consistent recurring pattern, which is, I don't want to say it's inherent to human nature because that makes me a little sad.
No, but I can see that though in a lighter way, at least, like in terms of survival and in terms of like, you know, that instinct to like want to protect yourself.
Yeah.
I can see, you know, wanting to stay on guard and like, there's a reasonable suspicion that people should have, I think. And I think it's like whenever that goes a little bit too far. Yeah.
Yeah, and it went way too far.
Way too far.
Went far and far and far and far, and it kept going.
Yeah.
And Giles was crushed. And I'm crushed. That's wild. I didn't know half the details in that.
Yeah.
But thank you for articulating it so well.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, happy fall, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that spooky ooky history lesson.
Happy fall. Is it fall? No, wait, it's not fall.
It'll be fall when this comes out.
It's fall in 2 days.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. I can't wait to wear all my coats. I have so many coats.
So many coats.
Yeah, I have like 20. I'm not even exaggerating.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you wear I was going to say, don't even wear a shirt underneath them. That'd just be your shirt. Like, just wear a coat.
I can wear a coat as my shirt, and then a coat over that coat as my coat.
That's it.
And then a coat over that coat as my overcoat.
Honestly, this is a good plan.
And then I could put my legs through the armholes and wear a coat as pants.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'd see that.
I feel like usually at the end of the episode, we are able to sum up things pretty well, but
we're struggling today. I'm just struggling in general today. I can't talk.
Goodness gracious.
Keep talking about 1962 instead of 1692.
What are your thoughts on that? How would you sum that up?
I think that this is going to sound really dark. I don't want it to sound that dark. I think this is one of those things where like we're fascinated by it because it feels so primitive and distant from us. But like you said, it's so real and relevant to today. I mean, we see it over and over again. Like I'm not comparing apples to apples. Please do not think that. But like, if you look at the Holocaust, one of the reasons why I think people have such a fascination with it is because it feels so distant and archaic compared to what we're used to today. However, we still see those patterns prevail today. So it's not as distant. I think remembering these types of things is super, super important for obvious reasons, but also just because like, it can happen again. It does happen again.
Absolutely.
It happens today.
We feel very detached from our history because we place everything that happened before squarely into the bounds of history. And we feel like modernity, just like being modern, excuses us from those things.
Yeah.
But
you think like we're past this. Yeah.
But it can happen so easily. And it has happened. I mean, we approve of it over and over again.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. Yeah. Well, thank you, Madison.
Of course. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any topic ideas that you would like us to cover, you can DM us at MECrisisPod on Instagram and Facebook, or send us a message. You can send us an email at myexistentialcrisispodcast@gmail.com. Follow Dylan on Twitter.
Twitter? Holy shit, no. Please don't follow me on Twitter. I think on Twitter my handle is like a small dog big deal. Born to be mild.
Twitter. It's not even called Twitter anymore.
No, I refuse to call it X.
I won't either.
Follow me on Instagram.
Yes.
At Marblefolk.
For real.
MARBLE.
Very talented artist. He's been doing a lot of really cool things as of late. Not that you haven't done it before, but like I love how you I love whenever you show the process of creating it. I think that's fascinating.
Thank you very much.
It's really, really cool. Guys, for real, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Madison.
Yeah, of course. Any parting thoughts, comments?
Head is completely empty.
Mine too. Mine is less than empty. It's bleeding out.
Oh my God, yeah. You should see somebody about that.
Yeah, I should. It's too late. But yeah.
All right, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.